started, a little bit about us. My name is Dave Ballin, President at Cyber Solutions. That picture is prior to quarantine, where I was 15 pounds lighter and was getting regular haircuts. So that has changed as of today. Hopefully we can get back to some normalcy here soon. But Cyber Solutions was started in 1995. We're a managed service provider, and we offer the complete technology solutions. Whether it's managing your workstations, your servers, cybersecurity, we do voice over IP, phone systems. We like to say that we're kind of a one-stop shop, so a complete technology solution provider. There are some other bullets here you can go ahead and read through at your own leisure, but that's probably enough about me. You want to get started on the Teams presentation. So real quickly, the agenda, we're going to be, like I mentioned, we're going to be in a slideshow first, and rather than bouncing back and forth between Teams PowerPoint and then Teams in the real world, I decided to kind of keep the two separate. So we'll spend a little bit of time in the Teams slideshow here, and I'll go over some usage scenarios, and we'll talk more at a 30,000-foot view of it. And then we'll go down to a Teams demo, which is more of, I'm going to open up my Teams desktop app, and we'll go through creating a team and how the channels work, creating meetings. Then we'll look at some of the apps that are available. Microsoft is really building an app ecosystem, if you will, that I think will really help this Teams product take off. So we'll look at a few of those when we get to that section. It'll be a little later. But first of all, a definition. I'll share a real quick story, and I think Steve from our office is on the call as well, and I think he would agree with me that when Teams first came out and first was introduced by Microsoft, if you had an Office 365 subscription, they pushed Teams down by default. And I'll be very honest with you, I was a little annoyed by it, that they didn't give you the option, that it was just all of a sudden there and it started popping up on people's desktops. And we were getting calls like, well, what is this Teams thing? And it was a really bad first impression. And to the point where there were times where, and again, maybe Steve can confirm, well, that we would just uninstall it thinking, well, what is this Teams thing? We didn't ask for it, we don't want it, and let's get rid of it. But upon further review, we started to look into it and really embraced it at Cyber Solutions, and some of our clients have also embraced it. It's become a really nice collaboration tool that we've used, and we've really steered clear of texting, and when we get on a huddle and some things in the morning, we almost exclusively use Teams. And I'll talk about that when we get into the demo portion of it. But and oddly enough, Microsoft, you can't find a really good definition of Teams on the Microsoft website, which is a little bit ironic. But anyway, I had to go to Wikipedia. And this one gets a little bit wordy, but just real quick, it's a proprietary business communication platform developed by Microsoft. It's part of the Office 365, or now it's called Microsoft 365 family of products. Teams primarily competes with similar service Slack, offering workspace chat, video conferencing, file storage, and application integration. I think Slack is a really good comparison, but I think it goes above and beyond that. And I'll show you that in the next slide. But before we move on, I just wanted you just to take quick notice of the image that's there in the lower right. What it's showing is, first of all, on the far right there, kind of the desktop app that you can download and install. There's also a mobile app that you can, Teams app, that you can install on your phone or mobile device. And then there's the web version of it. So you can go to a web browser on any device and then log into your Teams deployment and manage your Teams that way. The desktop app, as you might imagine, has the most functionality, but the other two are very, very close behind in what you can do. There are very little that you can't do with the mobile app and the web app that you can do with the desktop, but there certainly are some things. So I just wanted to point that out. There are three ways to work with Teams: desktop app, mobile app, and then a web browser version. So I'd like to, in my opinion, Teams goes beyond just comparing to Slack. and it kind of takes over, it takes multiple applications and combines it into one collaboration tool that's based in the cloud. And we'll start at the top there, Outlook, which we're all, I'm sure, very familiar with. We use on a daily basis. I tend to live out of my inbox. And what Teams can do is, it doesn't replace Outlook by any stretch, but it does work in conjunction with it. In some ways, it may replace it, but one thing in particular, you might have fallen into this trap in the past. We certainly do at Cyber Solutions, or we used to, where we would end up with an email thread that was, 15, 20 emails. I'd email something to Steve and Jeff or somebody. They would email me back, and then we go back and forth and back and forth, and there would be this massive stream of Outlook email messages being sent back and forth. Well, with Teams, we have moved to more of to the chat-based side of Teams, so that we can, if we have one-off type questions or we want to start a conversation, we don't have to get into Outlook, compose a message, send it. We can just fire something off in chat. So that's a piece that's replaced, for us anyway, of Outlook. We don't use the inbox as much anymore for chatting amongst ourselves. We tend to use the chat function. The other thing it does, it synchronizes with your calendar, and you can use the calendar function in Teams to schedule meetings, and then of course have your normal calendar items in Outlook that might be you're going to an appointment or what have you. And the two sync very well together. So you can, when you're scheduling, you see both sides and what's scheduled. So that's kind of nice. Slack is the next one down there, Slack. That's probably the most, the Teams has the most in common with Slack. And Slack is, if you've not worked with it, it's a messaging platform. You can do chat functions on it, you can share files. And it is a reasonable comparison to Teams, although Teams goes above and beyond Slack. And one of the things that Teams can also do is manage projects. And I put Microsoft Project Professional there. That's the only image I could find of it. And I will say this for sure, that Teams does not go to the level that Project does, but it does give us some simple project management where we can have tasks and due dates and that type of thing that might not, that Project might be overkill for. And we'll look at that component once we get to the demo portion of it. And then finally, down at the bottom there's Zoom. We've probably all used Zoom or certainly heard of it. Every commercial you see these days tends to have a Zoom feel to it. But Zoom is a video conferencing tool that allows you to do ad hoc meetings with individuals. You can just fire up a Zoom meeting and be on a video conference. Zoom also allows you to do presentation type video conferencing like we're doing today. And we're drinking our own Kool-Aid here. We're using Teams as our video conferencing presentation tool today. So got a couple of items here I just want to look. Okay, good. Just want to make sure we're all up here. Okay, good. So those are the tools, the 4 tools in particular that I find that Teams can replace in a lot of cases. In the example of Project, maybe it doesn't go quite as far. In fact, it doesn't go quite as far, but certainly we can use Teams to do some level of project management. So combines the collaboration tools in one cloud-based solution. I think Teams is really set up to do some nice things, which you'll see as we go forward. This is, I wanted to show you the slide of what it looks like, just so we could talk about the format quickly and get you thinking how to design a Teams deployment. And I'll give you some examples in the next couple of slides, but before we do that, I wanted to just briefly touch on how this Teams graphical interface, if you will, is designed, and basically the look and feel. You can see based on the top up here that it's the web version of the application, and you can see down the left-hand side here, this is going to be common for all of the tools. I'm sorry, except for the mobile one. The mobile one, these navigation items on the left-hand side are at the bottom, but regardless, We have an activity button, which we'll talk about when we get into the demo. We have the chat feature, which we can open up chat sessions with multiple users and multiple groups as well. But what I want to talk about right now, I don't want to get into too much detail of the others right here, but I want to just talk about Teams and how they're formatted. And so those of you that are using Teams, you may have different examples, but you can see that the ones with the pictures are actually teams. So we've created, or in this particular slide, there are two teams that are created: Fabricam Designs and then Interior Design Expo 2018. And within each team is one or more channels. The general channel is created by default, and then we can create multiple channels below that. So you can see, obviously, in the Fabricam Designs, there are 4 channels, and under this interior design one, there are 2 channels. You assign team members at the team level, and then you can have a little bit of control over what people can access, not necessarily access, but what they can do within the channels. This is an area, and I shouldn't lead with weaknesses, but at least it's important to get it out there. One of the weaknesses that I think will definitely improve is the ability to assign permissions within Teams. Right now, they're a little bit, they're not very granular. It's almost an all or nothing in some cases, or you can do read only, but we'll get to that in a little while. But understand that team members are assigned at the team level, and then down below the different channels, we can give them read only, or they can be owner, or what have you. But so as we look at designing a Teams deployment, we want to think about and keep this in mind. This is the team, and then these are channels below it. And under each channel, if we move to the right, there are, by default, there's a conversations tab. And that conversations tab, obviously you can see the sample conversation that's here. And when we first started using Teams, we sort of got that confused with chat. We started to use conversations as our chat function, and it didn't work out really well at all, because one-off chats and just simple questions are probably not best to put in conversations. Instead, we started using chat, which worked really, really well. And the way we look at the conversations tab is more of a bulletin board. So rather than Steve and I in a chat together, or Kim and I in a chat together, or Jeff or whoever, we're in a chat. It's the conversations tab to us represents a bulletin board where we can post items of interest to the entire team. We can communicate things that have happened or milestones or what have you. That's what we would put into conversation, something we want all of our team members to see. The next tab over is files, and so you can share files within, and then they're stored here in the Teams deployment, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And then the wiki and the actual Fabric, this is actually Excel tab. Those are items that you can add on the fly. So by default, the conversations and the files are created, and these other items you can create on the fly. So hopefully that makes some sense. Just kind of trying to keep an eye on the chat function with Kim and I, just to make sure that everything's going smooth. So it looks like it is. All right, good. So that's what Teams looks like from a high level. Okay, just keep in mind as we start talking through these next couple of slides that the team level, there's a team level, and then below that are channels within that team. Okay, so just after all of that, that's all you should need to remember from this slide is teams are at the top and then channels are below it. You'll also see that on the right there, kind of a quick sample of the mobile app being able to do video conferencing. That phone is a little elongated. I had to stretch this slide a bit to get the picture to work, but you get the idea. All right, so this is kind of a fluffy slide, but Teams can be used across many different industries. We work with construction, we work with property management, accounting, of course, we're information technology, there is a hospitality, many different industries we can use that. And I want to talk about 2 in particular in the next couple of slides. The first one is the construction industry. And as you design your Teams deployment, it makes some sense to think about, of course, who are the team members going to be and what kind of access are they going to have. In the case of construction, if you've got sort of a simple, it might be the wrong word to use, but a very simple line of construction that you do, you might end up just creating one team, and then each channel below it is an active job that you're working on. So we might have just a team called company team, because I'm not very creative, I guess. And then below that, multiple channels, and each channel would represent an active job. And then as we go into that channel, you remember we have the conversations tab. That conversation tab could be, just simply the address of where the project's going on, just some details about the project, and then conversations that are outside of chat that might be important for the entire team that's working on that job or channel. And then we have the files tab, which is over, and we might want to store some things that are some details about the plans themselves for that particular construction job. We might some safety sheets, some just what have you, and those, then each user, each team member has access to that files folder, or I should say files tab, using either the mobile device or desktop, or the desktop app or the web app. So all the files you're able to access the files across all the platforms. So you might, and if it's a more complex construction company, you might have, maybe you have a residential team and a commercial team. So then maybe underneath each of those teams, you have jobs/channels that that are active jobs at that point. Or maybe you have a paving division, and maybe you have an excavating division that run on different, and so you create two different teams that way, and then the channels below that would be the different jobs. So there are a lot of ways to organize teams, but it makes some sense to start thinking about that before you start going all in. And maybe you run a pilot with, all right, we're going to try this deployment first with these two teams or these three teams, and then channels below it, and then just run one or two channels or one or two jobs through it and see how it works, and then adjust accordingly before you go into full-on production. The other industry that I want to talk about is financial industry. We have a client who is in the small business loan industry, and the way they utilize teams is they have 3 different teams, and they're Committee 1, Committee 2, and Committee 3. And there are certain members, board members that are, or approval members that approve loans. And Committee 1, there's 5 or 6 members as part of that committee, and then 5 or 6 for Committee 2 and Committee 3. And they're all and then each channel below that is a loan that's going to be either approved or not. And then in the file section of each of those channels, they list all the financial information that's needed to evaluate whether that loan is going to be approved or not. And they've gone as far as to add you can add polls, POLLS, to say, do you approve this loan? Yes, no, I abstain, or what have you. So then they can get the real quickly the results of who voted and whether that loan is going to be approved or not. So, and one thing to keep in mind I didn't mention yet is Teams is not necessarily limited to your current company. You can invite external users into a particular team, and you'll see that when I start to demo ours as well. That it's not, you don't have to have individuals just within your organization. You can invite external, and that's what this financial company is doing. They have brought their board members, and the members that approve the loans are almost exclusively external. So they've invited them into each of the channels, and then they go through the approval process. So just to kind of get you thinking about how you can use Teams. I know Kyla here is in the room from JAK, and JAK is evaluating Teams a little bit, I think. And one way to use it might be, you could go just to say, one big team, and then each channel is every client. You could go that route. You could say, yearly. You could be, one team could be an annual. I guess as I think that through, maybe that wouldn't work out all that well. But maybe you've got, a tax team, and you've got a test team and a review, and then underneath that you've got the clients. But then there's some bleed over. So, it hopefully that gets you thinking on how to utilize, or I should say, to design your team's deployment. So those are the two industries I kind of wanted to talk about. All right, so now that we're in the Teams, this is my Teams desktop application. And we can just go through, you can see down the left-hand side here, I want to talk just briefly about these items. And you can reorganize them if activity doesn't make you want Teams at the top or chat at the top or what have you. But activity is where you can see anything. As you start to become, you become more members of more teams, and you're trying to keep track of different things, you may not be able to check all your teams at once. So if you come into this feed, this activity feed, there will be highlights on what you've missed. So the things that are directly related to your teams and what you've missed, so, or what you haven't looked at yet. And you can also filter. I can filter by, maybe I want to see everything that Steve sent me, or Steve's done, or Kim, or what have you. I can also use the ellipses here, the more button, to look at. I only want to look at unread stuff. I only want to look at when someone's mentioned my name. We'll talk about that if you haven't heard of @mentions before. Anytime someone's replied to me, or reactions, giving me a thumbs up or whatever, anytime someone's missed a call. If I've got any voicemail, if someone tries to call you, that's a feature here. It calls you within Teams. They can actually leave you a voicemail as well. Or the apps, I just want to see any apps or anything, what's trending and what people are talking about right now. So there are multiple ways to filter the activity and see what you've missed or what's in your activity list. But the second, well, again, you can drag and drop these to be a different level, different organization, or I'm sorry, to be in different organization, yeah. But here are my teams that I'm belong to. Of course, there's a testing team. I have an accountability group, and there's one member. He's actually from Australia, which I want to bring that up a little later, because I'll come back to that when he calls. But within each group, within each team, we have multiple channels. So here's our cyber team, here's our sales and marketing team, and the accountability group team. But if you want to create, I just wanted to show you. I'm sorry, before we get to that. So that's the teams we've already seen. Here's the chat function. I have multiple chats with open up with different people. Here's my calendar. You can see that this session, I actually scheduled it twice, so that's my fault. But you can see that this session is able to join. Now, you might think, well, Dave, you're already in it. Why would you want to join it again? Well, keep in mind that I've joined Kim's Teams meeting, and I'm not in my own Teams meeting. So that's where it can get a little bit confusing, because Kim created this meeting, and I'm joining. If I click that button, I'd be joining her meeting from my own team. So it gets a little confusing that way, but just keeping yourself straight. But then there's calls. You can call people. So you can I can come into calls and I can call Kim directly. It doesn't call her phone, it calls her Teams application. So if she has Teams installed, like she has, Steve and Kim both have Teams installed on their phone, if I click this, it will call them via Teams. It doesn't call their phone number. Same thing with the video call. I can video call. Kim and I spent this morning just kind of preparing for this meeting on a video call, and it works really well. So Damien, like I mentioned, here's why I wanted to bring this up real quick. Damien is in Australia, and he is, when he's called, just for side note, anyone in Australia, any of the plans in Australia allow free calls to the US, but the reverse is not true. So he would always call me, and when we would connect via our cell phones, just regular phone calls, because he's on the other side of the world, there is a delay you know, like you've probably seen it on the news or on TV where people are stumbling all over themselves trying to talk because there's the delay in, you know, maybe it's only 2 or 3 seconds, but it's enough of a delay where you don't know when their thoughts stopped and when you're supposed to respond. And so that was very annoying to try and keep. Our conversations would take, it seemed like twice as long because we were just kind of waiting to see if he was done talking. Well, when we started to use Teams, number one, I can initiate a call now without getting charged for it. Number two, we can use video conferencing. And number three, there is no delay. It's as if you're just on a regular phone conversation. So it works out really well. It's high quality video, and it's high quality voice as well. It works really, really well. So, but you can make calls within Teams. And then files we'll come back to as well a little bit later. So what I want to do is start with just creating a brand new team so you can kind of see how it works and what options we have. So down below here, we can join or create a team. If someone's asking you to join a team, they can give you a code and you can enter it here and then you can join their team. But in our case, we're just going to create a new one. We're going to create it from scratch. If we have two options here, private obviously means what it says. It's people need permission to join, which we're going to create, but also public. If we wanted anyone in our organization to be able to see this team, we could create it as a public team. In our example, we're going to use private. So this is going to be our, I'm going to be super creative here, classroom team. And then, you know, of course, you can give it a description. Not very creative, but so then I go ahead and click create. And they congratulate us. It really wasn't that hard, but okay, thanks for the feedback. So then we can start adding members. Let's say we want Steve in there. So we'll click add, and maybe we want Kim as well. Oh. And we'll add. And one thing you'll notice is that each of them, or we have an option to either make them an owner or a member. As an owner, you can create and modify items in the channels, but as a member, you get read only. So I'll make both of them owners. For this example, it makes the most sense. And now we have our classroom team and the general tab by default. We can also go into that team and look at some of the settings. Right here, and we can see the 3 members that are there. If they were listed as members instead of owners, they'd be down here. In the case of external users, guests, they're classified as guests, so they would show down here. We have some settings as well. We can give a team picture. We can say member permissions, guest permissions, at mentions. There's some other items here you can take a look at. We won't go into those in detail here, but that's the settings of our particular team. We might also want to create a new channel, and this one might be our. It's amazing how I came up with that off the top of my head. And then we can set the privacy to accessible to everyone on the team, accessible only to a specific group of people within a team. In our case, we're just going to use the standard, but that's something you can take a look at. And now we have our general, our additional channel here. And if we want Steve, or Kim, or one of you guys, probably Steve, maybe you're not, Kim's kind of managing the producing this. So Steve, if you want to put a post in there, just something to get us started with. While he's doing that, let's move over to and the posts is also similar to conversations. So again, that's the bulletin board piece that we talked about. So there's Steve. So he's gone ahead and reply. So I can go ahead and reply to him. And right from here, you know, what I can do then is, oh, Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. Let's go back to the file. So there's a post that's happening again. This is more of the bulletin board material. You do have some formatting functions that you can use, so you don't have to just go with the plain text. You can modify that, or you can add stickers or GIFs, or we can also start a meeting. So if I wanted to start a meeting with Steve, I could just click Meet Now. We'll come back and talk about that after a bit, but that's an option here. If I go into Files, there shouldn't be anything in here right now, but we can drag and drop files. So I'm going to go, and I created some test files here. I'm going to put the Excel spreadsheet in there, and then I'll also put the Word document in there. And the beauty of this is now there are files that are part of this classroom channel that people can see. But Steve, if you want to open up Word so that we can kind of collaborate on that, and maybe you guys can see how. So if I right mouse click and select Open, and then say Edit in Teams, it opens up the document. It's a very simple document, but you'll see that once Steve comes in, we'll be able to see him work on it at the same time I am. So we'll give him a minute to get connected. And now you can see that, yeah, so you can see Steve's now has the document open. If there were multiple users, they would be listed here as well. Yeah, so, and then Steve can, and I can modify, or, geez. So these are test notes. So Steve can see those immediately. I can see his notes. And, if I wanted to, we could really be a bit more accurate. So we could modify these documents and collaborate. And I realize this is a very simple example, but you can see how you can collaborate. And this is what we do in the morning when we do our morning huddle. And because we haven't worked in the same building for what feels like forever, we have 3 people that come in on that cyber tech huddle that we go over our to-do list for the day and the different tickets and the different things that we might be working on. So it's a great collaboration tool just to work on documents. You could also do the same thing with the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, let me find my place here. So one of the things that, running a little short on time here. Let's take a look at, so now you've got, we created a team. It came with the generic channel. We created a new channel, added some users to that channel, and then showed how we can create some content in the posts section, and then looked at how we can collaborate on different files. The next thing I want to just quickly show you is the chat. So here's, let's see if we can find so Kim and I have a cyber marketing meeting every 2 weeks. And so we can, let's see if we can find a better one. Well, regardless. So each one of these chat sessions, Cyber Tech, I renamed that. That's actually Steve, Jeff, and I. And so I went in and renamed that rather than listing out all the names, I renamed it to just Cyber Tech. And you can see, maybe you can see by the circle there, there's two other individuals, including myself. There's Kim giving me some great feedback there, giving me some love a little bit. And then Steve, and Kim and Steve. And so you can see it get a little bit lengthy the more chat sessions you have, but it is a very nice way to communicate. Like in particular, when you're out in the field, maybe you're not at your desk or whatever, and you want to just fire off some one-off communication. So I see a question came in here, and I'll just take a peek at it. So Scott, let me come back to that. So you have notifications are, yeah, that's a good question, Rachel. So if we can go to Teams, and we can actually go to my profile here. Let me get up here and look at settings. for my profile, and we can look at notifications. And we have some options. We're not going to go through all of these, but we have some options. The banner is the thing where it pops up on Windows 10 on the lower right-hand corner, and then via email as well. So anytime anyone mentions you, or you get mentioned in a channel, or a channel that you're part of, or team mentions, those will pop up in email and in banner. What we've found, this gets a little bit quirky, and Steve, if you want to add to this, because you maybe experienced this as well, but it to me, what I can, if I don't view the item, like let's say Steve has sent me a chat or has mentioned me somewhere, and if I don't go in and view that, and if Teams doesn't see that I viewed it, it will send me an email an hour later, almost as a reminder. So, oh, hey, you got something on Teams. You might want to go take a look at it. It actually shows it in the email message that they send. But if I go in and a lot of times, Steve, we have our phones on us most of the time, and so I can see his chat immediately. If I check it and move on from there, then it doesn't send me an email because it knows I've already seen it. So that's kind of a convenient feature. But I think that's the way it's to where, even though when I go in here, it doesn't say anything about that under notifications. That's the way I've seen it work. Oh, I stand corrected. Missed activity emails once every hour. So I guess that I was right. I just didn't realize that you could set it in there. So learn something new every day, I guess. So all right, so let me just find my place here. So we talked about voice and video calls. Screen sharing. So if I go to Steve here, I can join a chat with him and then immediately share my screen, call him, or do video chat. So it's pretty convenient there and pretty quick the way you do that. I probably should have taken a little more time. Steve sometimes has a foul mouth in our chat session, so I apologize if anything came out there, but or maybe that's me. So in any event, you can do screen sharing right within chat, so that like Steve might issue and he might be connected to their machine and he might need a second opinion, and he can go in and share his screen with me or Jeff or whoever else, and even as a group share it so we can all be looking at it at the same time. So that works really well. So let's shift gears for a minute and let's talk about meetings. And I'm going to go down to the calendar, and there are a couple of ways, a couple of types of meetings that you can create. You can go and schedule, well, there are three actually. You can meet now, so we can just fire up a private meeting right now, and away we go. We can schedule a meeting, which of course puts it on our calendar, and we can create a live event. And the live event is what we have done. Kim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what we're using for today. So a live event is more of like the Zoom presentation, where we're creating and allowing people to come in and be part of a presentation. We get a link that you use to click on to get to it, and you can have thousands of people attend. We don't have near that number today, but you can certainly, it scales very, very well. So might as well go through just a real quick what the options that you have. So I'm going to click Meet Now. You can go ahead and name your meeting, and then go ahead and join now. Across the top of that meeting, you can share your screen. You can get on a phone call. You can get on a video chat. You can you raise your hand. You can do all the things that you guys see right now, or probably most of them. But it's a quick way to do a meeting within Teams. You just meet right now. And you can schedule one. Like I mentioned here, again, I'm not going to do it because it puts the presentation on hold. You can schedule a meeting or create a live event if you wanted to. Okay, let's talk a little bit about apps, because I think this is where, so we've talked about Teams and some of the generic's the wrong word, but some of the base functionality that you can use it for: chatting. You can post files. You can look at a bulletin board. You can do a variety of different, and calendar, set up meetings, that type of thing, do calls. But I think that there are some additional items that are very powerful And that's the app. Microsoft is building this apps ecosystem where you can add apps to your team's deployment. And I imagine that will grow quite significantly as Teams starts to take off. So you might have seen, so if I click on this ellipses here, these are apps that I can add. And I want to talk about one that I was going to demo, but I'm not going to have time, is weather. So I'm going to skip the weather app. I think we all know how that works. But the one that I do want to add is Planner. And then we'll get into Scheduler as well. But if I add the Planner app to my deployment, I give this little advertisement at the top there. I can create. Get rid of this. And I go into Planner. Oops. Oh, I wonder if because I'm not a. Well, let me try that. I'm gonna try that. Oh, I have to test, that's right. Okay, so let's go back to the Teams and add Planner that way. Oh, all right, well, it's malfunctioning a little bit on me. So let me think that through for a moment. But while I think that through, let's go back to our Teams and look at the scheduler here. I'm going to go up here. Oh, this is maybe where I need to put that in. Yeah, okay, sorry. So let me go back and let's start over again. So let me, instead of the way I was doing it, we're going to go through the classroom channel and we're going to add at the top here a tab. And one of the common ones that we can add is called Planner. And this is the item I talked about that can replace, not replace, but maybe do some simpler functions that Project can. So if we click on Planner and we want to create a new plan, so this might be Plan B, which is, okay, so then let's click on Save. And once we get into it, we have multiple things that we can do. We have buckets. We can add a new bucket. You know, but first of all, here's our to-do list. So let's add a task, and this task is called. Just not creative today at all. Set due date. Let's say that's for tomorrow. I'm going to assign Steve to it. He's doesn't do much anyway during the day. And then let's click Add Task. Now we can add another task. Task 2. And we can set the due date of down the road, and let's assign that to myself. And now we have 2 tasks. Now we can add a new bucket. And we might want to call that, so let's go with, this is going to be a bucket. Let's just say we're going to, boy, I can't. I guess I'll just go unique or go generic here. And under that bucket 2, then we can create another task. Multiple words and stuff. And then we'll go the 3rd. We'll assign that to Kim. Get some items out there. And then what we can do when we have some tasks going, I must not have saved the one I added before, but we can look at charts so we can see that we have where our tasks, how many are left, what status they're in, what bucket they're in. I could rename that to do so you know it could flow a little bit better. That we can set priority on different tasks. I'll show you that in just a second. And we can see what members have different tasks. We can look at a schedule. So we can say that, okay, here's the calendar. Who has, what tasks are due coming up? and then we can search and filter by the different buckets, the different tasks that are there. So let me add another task here real quick, just so it sticks. Now you can see we have 2 tasks. They're both under the one bucket. If we go into those tasks, we have the ability to give them a label, what color they are. We can assign it, copy, and move it to a different bucket if we need to. So that gives us the ability to create a fairly simple project plan for the Classroom channel. This is unique to Classroom channel now. So if we rewind a bit and revisit our examples that we were given earlier on in the session, maybe in a construction environment or in the accounting environment, you would create a client or a project job as a channel, and then within that channel you can create multiple tasks, multiple buckets, and then give them, assign them due dates, and also assign them to individual users, maybe the project manager on that particular one, or individuals doing the work. So, that's the planner itself. There is also an app that I was going to show that it gets into a little bit more detail, but it's actually called Schedule. And we see this would be very useful in the hospitality. I know Golder Hospitality is in the house, but for restaurants or hotel or just any sort of scheduling that you would need, if you add the schedule, I believe, or it's called Shifts. I'm sorry, it's a scheduling app, but it's actually called Shifts. If we add this, and I'm not going to get into too much detail, but if you add that app, you have the ability to create schedules. You can request time off. You can add, as long as users are part of that channel, you can add them to the schedule, and then this allows you to manage the different schedules and the users that, the employees that are part of that schedule. So I've run out of time, so I'm not going to have time to go through that, but I wanted to at least get it out there because I know Golder is out there, so they might want to give that a look as well. So, but we're bumping up against the top of the hour, and I appreciate your patience. I'm going to go and got a few minutes left here to look at some questions. So the question that Rachel had was about when someone starts making notes while you work, kind of like an email notification. We sort of talked about that a little bit. Hopefully I answered your question. You get that banner notification in the lower right-hand corner and or an email. How do you, okay, so I've got another one there, but let's go down the list, I guess. So Scott, you and I talk offline about the advantages, 3 to 5 advantages or differentiators between MS Teams and G Suite. I'll be very honest with you, I don't have a lot of experience with G Suite. So I think if we had a conversation offline, you could tell me, we could kind of compare notes, and then you could decide whether it makes some sense to work with Teams or to stick with G Suite. So I apologize, I couldn't visit that here, but we'll talk offline. So Lynette asks, are there any additional costs for these features? No, Teams is free. There's a free version, which has a lot of functionality, just about everything that I talked about today. Lynette, you're on Office 365, or I guess Microsoft 365, so we can talk offline about what was included with that. But the bottom line is, for the most part, it's free. So you just need to have a Microsoft account. Rachel asked, do chats stay for a long time, or do they delete every so often? Really good question. We have been using it for maybe a year, and all of the chats are there and you can search on them. That's the beauty of that search window at the top. You may have noticed that I used a couple of times. You can search the chat and it will pop up if you want to go back and look something. So I imagine that there is a spot where it starts to archive, but we haven't reached that one, and I don't know off the top of my head. So looks like another question. If you create a team and then change your mind and want to reorganize that team or channels or delete them and create a new one, can you move those files or conversations easily before deleting the original team. There is not a way that I know of moving those conversations over. You could rename the channel or rename the team, but getting that content out, I think you move files. There is a feature that says move files, but in terms of the chats, chats aren't really that relevant in this case, but the conversations on the bulletin board, those you wouldn't be able to move that I know of. There might be an export function, but we've not gotten that far. So, and have to use that. So, how do you add? Oh, so Shelby says, how do you add someone from outside your network? That is, you just key in their email address. So once you when you go to a channel and ask you to add individuals, instead of typing in, like I was typing in Steve, typing in Kim, you would just key in the user's email address, and then they would get an email to join. So that's what I did with Damien. He's not part of our organization, but he got an email, and then he was able to join that channel. So. All right, I don't see any other. Kim, do you have any other questions or see any more questions?
No, I can speak to a couple of them. Just
okay.
Basically the Microsoft Teams versus G Suite. I use both. We use G Suite for my extracurricular hockey board meetings and Microsoft Teams for work. And it seems like G Suite is kind of your more simple, if you want to collaborate in real time type of a product, where Microsoft products have a more robust options, and it's kind of more for one person to be working on at a time, and then you send it to another person, they work on it, and it kind of goes back and forth like that. So that's what I found with Microsoft versus Google. And then how to add someone from your network. If you want to have a meeting real quick with somebody, I can do this with even my kids when they have a question about school or something. I just send them a link to the meeting and they can just join in, just like you guys all did with this meeting. So it makes it pretty slick to communicate face-to-face virtually with people. So just some kind of comments that I've had. But yes, I will get Dave everybody's questions and contact information, and he can finish his presentation here and be in touch.
So thanks. I'm glad you guys all showed up. It's nice to have these tools like Teams or even Zoom or whatever you decide to use, but it's good to have these tools so we can continue and stay connected. We have rarely been out to clients, more recently, but less for during the heat of all of this. And so it's nice to have this and see some people show up. So thanks for showing up, and hope you guys have a great day.